Hello, everybody, and welcome to the August 15th, 2018 edition of the Ephrom Josine Show. I am your host, Ephrom Josine. Now, I'd like to say, I use Twitter all the time. I know, that's kind of surprising. I actually have a Twitter you can follow at EphромJosine1. However, not everyone can get a Twitter. For instance, Cult of Dusty, noted anti-SJW Twitter user who has basically annoyed and epically trolled every anti-SJW he can, recently had his Twitter suspended. Which I didn't believe at first, because I thought it was only the SJW hate mob that was censoring trademark people. Shows how blue-pilled I am. But anyway, it's amazing to me, by the way, that these people can still be just in such a bubble. They say only conservatives get censored, only conservatives get censored. Remember what happened to that Peter Dow parody account that was called Peter Douche? It was, if you don't know, Peter Dow essentially has dedicated his entire life to defending Hillary Clinton. And someone made a parody account of him, and then they're like, no, you can't have that, you can't have that, so they took it down. But, okay, enough with that. Let's talk about Nash D'Souza, one of my least favorite topics, honestly. I've talked about his film Death of a Nation a few times. It honestly looks awful. However, now he is currently throwing a temper tantrum on Twitter, as well as on the official Death of a Nation Twitter account. Why is that? Well, it's very simple. According to Rotten Tomatoes, the critics have given it 0%, while the audience has given it 90%. I personally think that's because the people who saw Death of a Nation were already fans of Nash D'Souza, and as such, more likely to agree and like the film, because most liberals don't see conservative movies in theaters. Just saying, Nash. However, that very racist film, Birth of a Nation, that apparently has a 100% on Rotten Tomatoes from critics. The exact opposite of Death of a Nation, which interesting, because it's the opposite of the title, too. Coincidence? And in case you're wondering, the average user, or the average audience, gave it a 56%. So most of them thought it was very okay. If you don't know, by the way, Birth of a Nation is one of the most racist films in all of existence. I personally think it's because critics who watch it are watching it and viewing it as a classic, and therefore can look over the racist aspects, and as such, you talk about, like, the cinematography is probably pretty good for its time, and things like that. I'm not saying that's particularly good reviewing. The fact the film is incredibly racist should take priority. But a film buff will look at film differently, you know? I would also like to kind of point out that Nash is currently playing the victim here very badly. It's the fact that all the liberal film critics don't like my movie. It must be all their fault and not the fact that I'm a propagandist. Honestly, I'm calling it now. If I come back in a year, the approval rating for Birth of a Nation, or Death of a Nation, is going to be less than 50%. I'm going to check what it is for Hillary's America real quick. Okay, Hillary's America had a total of 1 positive review. It has 4% to Nash, although 80% of the general audience seemed to think it was an okay film. America, Imagine a World Without Her, has 8%, 2 positive reviews this time, Dinesh. Congratulations, you are amazing in that regard. The audience score for 2016 Obama's America is about 75%, which is really what I think makes sense. Because, again, I haven't seen Obama's America. The one I saw was Hillary's America. And 59% of people liked his other film, Michael Moore Hates America. Although, it's funny because the critics actually gave that 75% to the Nash. In the case of, did he? No, Mike Wilson directed Michael Moore Hates America. I guess it's just he had a role in it, and it's the only thing Wilson's ever directed, for the record. I keep forgetting who that guy is. He's so bland. He directed one movie like 13 years ago that was specifically about complaining Michael Moore exists. You have lived a very productive life, my friend. Anyway, we haven't talked about Krrish Off in a while recently. If you don't know who Krrish Off is, she's essentially the worst columnist out there. She writes for Louder with Crowder. I think she's the editor-in-chief of Louder with Crowder, in fact. She's essentially built a career out of being the least pleasant human being in existence. She strikes me as the kind of person, if, to quote T.J. Kirk, would ask for extra mustard at a restaurant, then take one bite, throw it across the room, and say, "I said no mustard." She just bothers me. It's her writing style has this obnoxiousness to it. It doesn't help by the fact that Krrish Off is known for lying. In a recent article discussing, for instance, I'm not entirely sure how to pronounce her name, Amaras scandal, she does not actually say what Donald Trump supposedly said in those tapes that Amaras had, and instead just complained that the media was covering it, which on a side note, is the media really covering it? I haven't seen much coverage of it. But that brings us to the one I want to talk about today. Dear crazy, hateful leftist trolls, get over yourself. Now, I'm going to read you the introduction, and then you're going to notice something very fast. This is common with Courtney Krrish Off's writing, by the way. Anyone who thinks the personal, inconsequential choices of others is in any way a reflection, judgment, or condemnment of their self-centered selves, that doesn't make sense as a sentence, who then relate with a digital mob, and then she links to another article, of course written by her, about a month ago, called Dear Victims of Internet Outrage Mobs Never Apologize. That doesn't prove anything other than you wrote about it. You didn't give a story. But, okay. To burn he or she who dared to make a choice without first consulting the swarm of internet nobodies. I'm writing to you, the crazy social justice jihadists who don't exist, who spend more time in the dark corners of the digital world than the real one. Your job is on the internet. Glass houses, Courtney, who scour the web looking for new material to tickle your triggers. I'd just like to remind everyone, Courtney Krrish Off has made a career out of lying to people and then wonders why people get angry at her. You, the people who think so much of your own irrational opinions, ginned up by the belief that your feelings actually matter, they don't. Well then, if you don't want to take into consideration what other people think, then you can have a boycott. That's typically what happens to businesses that don't really care about their customers, and should always be considered by people who don't even know you exist. If you want my money, then yeah, you're gonna have to consider people like me exist. I think that's perfectly reasonable, Courtney. Honestly, this is just the free market at play. The free market you people love so much. What do you want? Do you want to point a gun at leftists' head and say, you're going to go watch that new movie? You're going to go listen to that song, even if you don't like it. You're going to give them your money. That sounds like genuine socialism. And I don't mean what these people think socialism is. I mean forcing you to pay for private media. Not public services we all use. Legitimate state-run media. That is actual socialism. You, the digital keyboard warriors hiding behind anonymous avatars. I've never done that. Eager to troll for the sake of being a troll. Weren't you friends with Milo? Pleased with yourselves every time you, as a digital horde, bully someone to your will. Yes, Rosa Parks and Martin Luther King Jr., the biggest bullies of the generation. And you'll notice how there is not very much substance in this. And that's because Krrish Off is actively scared of substance. I'm not kidding. I'll read you some more of this piece. The hardest part is finding, because all of this is just insane ranting. So wrapped up are you in your own feelings of self-importance. This is coming from Krrish Off. I just need to remind you that. A feeling which must have arisen from the absence of any true accomplishments or lives of meaning. What have you done, Courtney? Let's see. You lied to people about Alfie Evans in order to get them to go against their own best interest. You insult your entire audience. You have several times. What else have you done? You actively have built your career on being wrong. That's what you do. You do the exact same thing Ann Coulter does, where you just repeat RNC talking points, but sound a little edgy while doing it. It's pathetically obvious, see what you're doing, but okay. You bravely attack anyone, even your own, if the person dares step a toe out of a blurry line you've pulled out of your tight anus that day. So you've never wrote about anyone you disagree with, then? And I like this idea, for the record, that the left is eating its own when they disagree with another figurehead in there. As if we aren't individuals. I thought an individualist like Krrish Off would understand people are individuals. Here's an actual example. Take, for example, Ruby Rose. I actually do not care about this example at all, for the record. An openly gay actress who is slated to play an openly gay character on CW's new Batwoman series. Okay, you, the hateful little hives of internet sadist losers, bullied her off Twitter. Okay, I'd like some proof it was the left who did that. If we're going to insist all actors be which they're slated to portray, I've got some bad news. No one said that. Say goodbye to superhero movies. Well, I don't care about most media fiction in general, so okay. Then there's the owner of a Mexican restaurant, cyberbullied by you internet gnomes. Internet gnomes? For daring to show a little pride that a White House cabinet had dined at his establishment. For the record, it wasn't just that the guy was dining there. In case you're wondering, it was Jeff Sessions. It was that the guy took a picture with Jeff Sessions and put it on his Twitter feed. Which, yeah. If you do that, people who don't like Jeff Sessions are probably going to boycott you. What do you want instead? Because I don't see an option that wouldn't actively require a genuine state control over what people eat. Did it ever consider it's perfectly fine for other people to have other opinions separate from yours? Just go type in the word Hitler or Nazi at Louder with Crowder and see what they got to say about your opinions. Of course not. Consideration, like happiness, is a foreign concept to you subspecies of lemmings, but it's okay for other people to have different opinions. Like my opinion that most superhero movies are complete garbage anyway, and I don't want to see them. But oh, apparently I'm bullying Ruby Ross. What? And for the record, I'd like to politely point out This is the last thing I want to talk about because this whole thing is so devoid of substance. Rather than scrolling past this man's social media entry, you slithered to a computer, a phone, or a tablet which offered you some kind of comfort with its blue lighting glow and swarmed him. Yeah, instead of scrolling past, they decided to close down or delete their media page. I think the restaurant still exists. Who really overreacted more? The person who said something a little mean or the person who deleted their social media? Who really over? Now, don't get me wrong. I don't support harassment. I've never supported harassment. However, if you are going to make that argument, then the onus is back on you. That's it. I'm Ephrom, and good night.